The Ability Experience started in 1977 as a way to give college fraternity men in Pi Kappa Phi a chance to have an impact on people with disabilities. And so we really wanted to kind of separate ourselves from other college fraternities and find something that was unique to us. So Marine Corps Marathon's been a special part for us. So this will be Jason's 10th Marine Corps Marathon. We've been able to run together in 7 of those.
I'm pushing my daughter tomorrow in the Marine Corps Marathon, which is really huge for me. I have a daughter who turned 16 only a few weeks ago, and she has multiple disabilities, cerebral palsy, autism, a seizure disorder. And so our lives are quite different from most people, and we have been able to do so many things because of organizations like the Ability Experience.
Being able to see what really is possible when people push to limits, both mentally and physically, to be able to run for a cause and make some really good friendships between people with and without disabilities, and really highlighting the abilities of all people. To see the excitement to cross that finish line is really something special to be a part of, and something that you're trying to get more people to experience themselves.
I wanted to start off, and we're going to be talking about the Ability Experience today, and today is about running for good. If you were in our last series that we did in January, it was called Running from God, and what that was about is we all walk from God. And as we walk from God, there are times in our life when we actively seek to come back to God, or maybe we've strayed a little bit and we were figuring it out, and it was kind of like the 5 steps that we need to take to walk back to God. And today's kind of a one-off message, but it's on the tail end of that running from God that there are times when in your life you're connected and you know that you're running for good. Like, you know that, like, I'm at pace right now. I feel connected to God. I feel like I'm surrounded and supported, and things are aligning, right? How many of you have had that moment in your life, like things are falling into place? Have you guys had that? Okay. Some of you, people are like, nah, I'm not going to say this for the last 3 years, like nothing. So what we're trying to do as a church is, can we pull out of that? Can we say that we can do something for good? And as a pastor, I get the joy of leading this church every single Sunday and going to visit other churches and being on teams throughout our larger Lutheran church, so throughout the ELCA. And one of the teams that I sit on was the mass gathering team for the ELCA youth gathering. So the ELCA youth gathering is up to 30,000 youth that descend on a city. And what they do is they rent out every hotel room. They bring in all these buses. They do a service project day. They have interaction center where they go and learn about all the different missions and opportunities throughout the Lutheran Church. And then every night they go into a stadium. So like the one that was going to happen this year was going to be in the Vikings Dome. And we rent out the whole stadium. We pack full the whole stadium with 30,000 young adults, leaders, youth, everything else. And the mass gathering team works to put on the stage experience. So they work to put on the front of house experience and say, here's how we work with everyone in that. So I was on that team as it was leading into 2022, and before things shifted on the gathering, and I met some incredible people. Met some really incredible people, and one of the people that I met on the team I'm going to introduce you to. But before I do that, I want you to hear that pastors too need gospel in their life. We lead every Sunday, and so we actively search for testimony and stories that just inspire us. Inspire us on a level that's like, that's my personal faith. So what you're hearing today is a story that's going to inspire you. It's going to inspire this church, but I want you to also know it's a story that personally inspired me to say like, oh wow, we're going to become best friends. And here's what it sounds like in Scripture. So if you got a Bible with you, we're going to start off with this because we're going to do a lot of conversation. So I just want to start with Scripture, have that word sitting with you. If you got a Bible with you, raise it up. You got Bibles out there? Okay, great. I love the Bibles in the church. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of Bibles out there. I love it. If you don't have a Bible, do you have a smartphone? Raise up your smartphone. You guys got that out there? That's great. Download the Bible app. There's a QR code in front of you if you don't have that on your phone already. It's going to link you to our event. Or if you haven't done that before, it's going to geolocate you to the neighborhood church. If you're online joining us, thank you so much. It's awesome that you're here. You're going to hear an incredible message and an incredible conversation. There's a link in the description for the Bible app. Go ahead and click that, and it'll bring you to message. It'll bring you to a devotion. It'll bring you to scripture notes on there, and then other ways to connect with different parts of the activities that we got going on in the church. But today we're going to be in Hebrews 12, and I'm going to read for you verses 1 and 2. And this is what kicked us off as a church in 2022. And so Hebrews is in the New Testament. Philemon is right before it. Titus is right before that. 1st and 2nd Timothy, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. If you're turning and you're seeing those, you're getting there. It's also really close to the end of your Bible. So start from the back and then work past Revelation and go, oh, and then work a couple more, get more comfortable, and then Hebrews, which is really fun to be there. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, and this is the example of Jesus. And I want you to hear a couple things in this before I bring up my friend and our guest speaker today. Verses 1 and 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. Looking not to others, but looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy, think about that again, running the race with perseverance and endurance for the sake of the joy that was set before him, endured the cross. For the sake of the joy that was before him, endured the suffering of what was occurring, disregarding its shame, and has taken a seat at the right hand of the throne of God. What you're going to hear today is about a cloud of witnesses. What you're going to hear today is about running the race with perseverance. What you're going to hear about today is for the sake of the joy. That's what's happening today. And I want you to hear this as the foundational text before we get into this conversation. Give me a warm welcome for Andrew Matznick from the Ability Experience. Come on up, Andrew. Come on up. I'm going to have you sit over here. So Andrew and I met on the mass gathering team. And when we met on the mass gathering team, it was, I didn't know you prior to that. Right? And what was your previous role? So you came in and we're kind of moving up and up in the team. What was your role the cycle before in the mass gathering?
Yeah, so I've been able to serve the last 2 cycles in Detroit and Houston on the team, and kind of an official chauffeur, kind of driving some of the team around, as well as some of our talent, some of the guest speakers and artists that came to perform for all the youth. Got to interact with them backstage, drive them around, and then support the team on the floor night of. So
yeah, it was great. So I didn't know there's a chauffeur role on the mass gathering team, and like everyone came on the team like, yeah, he's our chauffeur. Like he picks up all the people at the airport, all the guest speakers, and I'm like, and we bring in world-class speakers, and so I'm like, that's a cool role, I'm like, you get to drive with them from the airport to wherever. I'm like, that's like 20 minutes of talk time, which is really great. So I was like, I want to meet this guy. I want to hear about some of the experiences. And then I started talking. There was an Olympic training runner in our group also, Micah. So we started talking about running, and I was like, who else runs? Like, who wants to go on a run? And you were like, I run a little bit. And I was like, what do you do? And he's like, well, I go running with people. And I was like, great. Like, tell me more, Andrew, right? And he's like, well, I work for the Ability Experience. And I was like, we're about to get in a conversation right now. So just as an example, they got to see the video. Mm-hmm. They have a little bit of intro into that. Can you just share with them a little bit, what is the Ability Experience?
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit that at the core of our mission is connecting people with and without disabilities. And so a lot of our work focuses on college fraternity men. We're on about 165 college campuses across the country, and our goal is to connect them with organizations that serve people with disabilities so they can volunteer on a weekly, monthly, semesterly basis with the goal of building those relationships with peers with disabilities, and then once they graduate, to be able an active participant in their community, serving people with disabilities, being advocates for them, and just creating these memorable experiences for those with and without disabilities. So while we have a focus on fraternity men, but we also provide opportunities for those outside of the fraternity through some of our running events and construction projects. We do everything from weekend construction projects for camps with people with disabilities to help make it more inclusive and accessible, so they can enjoy climbing a rock wall or zip lining, even though they may be using a wheelchair. They can experience all the joys of camp that many of us have been able to experience over the years, and everything up to a cross-country bicycle ride where we have about 100 men that cycle across the country from the West Coast to Washington, D.C., meeting with different organizations for people with disabilities across the country, learning the services that they provide, building those relationships, and just trying to do some good work.
Yeah. Right?
Thank you.
Hey, do you run? Yeah, I run with some pretty incredible people. And I was like, did you want to go on a run? And I was like, hold on a second. Like, I feel mission, I feel body. And I was inspired immediately. And I'm like, I got to know the story. And so how long have you worked for Ability Experience?
Been on staff for 13 years.
13 years, okay,
Yep.
13 years. And you don't just, so what's your title right now in Ability Experience?
I'm our Assistant Executive Director of Programs.
Ooh, fancy.
Fancy.
That's right. I know, super fancy. That's great. And so with that, you also participate in the events.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
what events have you participated in the Ability Experience?
Yeah, so as a student, I participated in our cross-country bicycle ride called the Journey of Hope. And then several construction projects that help lead groups several times throughout the year. And then do several running events. So as you saw in the video with my buddy Jason, I've run.
Can we get a picture of Jason? Do we got a picture of Jason up there? So let's see Jason. Oh my gosh, is that?
So this is our first
This
run
is your
together.
first one?
Yes.
First one ever.
So I've run a couple marathons.
Wait, hold on a second. Your hair today.
Yeah. A little more
And I just want
controlled.
to, I think like executive director hair.
Yeah, try to look sharp for you.
That's fantastic. I really like what's going on there.
That's about
good.
5 hours of running, but that's what it'll do to your
I
hair.
love it.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And this is Jason.
It is, yeah.
How old is Jason there?
So in this photo, Jason, probably about 10, 11 years old. So this was in 2010, our
Okay.
very first marathon together with my buddy Kyle, who roped me into all of this as a runner. That's
great.
And his mom, who ran with us that year as well, too. So
No, I'd love to hear about your running experience, but tell us, and I've heard a little bit, but tell us about Jason.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to hear about Jason.
Yeah, so Jason's awesome. He's 23 right now. Try to keep track, but he's triplet, so he's got two sisters. He lives in Atlanta. Loves baseball. Probably the biggest Atlanta Braves fan that I know. So I think they were season tickets holder this year. So it was a perfect year for them to go to all the games and watch the Braves win the World Series. But loves life. He plays baseball himself for Miracle League,
great.
just north of
Yeah, I
Atlanta.
love that.
So
Okay, great.
Just lives and breathes baseball. Just
awesome.
loves it, and then loves doing some races. We haven't done a couple races. I guess our last race was about 2 years ago, but we're trying to figure out what our next race is together now that
Good.
we're on the backside of COVID and races are opening back up. So it's just over the years become like a brother,
That's really
and
cool.
just build a great relationship with him and his family. So.
How many races have you done together?
So we've done a dozen or so races.
A dozen or so races.
Yeah,
Now, so I'm intrigued, right? Having never done an Ability Experience, right, and gone out with runners, what were your expectations on this race? What were your expectations going in, not knowing Jason or knowing what was going to happen? And what was the result after the race? Like, just first race expectations. Like, what
Absolutely.
was
I mean, the main goal was to finish. This is all.
Well, that would be a horror. Yeah, you definitely. If the goal is to have them experience that, you don't want to stop before the
Exactly.
end. I didn't think about it. You can't really like not finish.
Yeah, no. This is all of our very first marathon, first time pushing anybody, first time running a marathon, and so we just wanted
Do you recommend
to
that
get
for
across
people
the-
who have to use this as their first experience?
As long as you trained, yes.
As long as you train,
I
okay.
probably did not train as much as I should have, nor probably haven't really trained for as much as I should have all these races.
Okay,
but,
all right.
No, it's just wanted to finish, and then after the races, kind of you hear about the runner's high, where you cross that finish line, you get that medal around your neck, and you just look back on, the last 2, 3, for us, 5.5 hours on the race together, and just we got hooked. So
That's
we've been
awesome.
running almost every year since.
That's awesome. Now, with this, you were explaining to me as we were talking that some of the things that we don't expect are that some of the challenges that people with disabilities face as we kind of walk through life and are just, we don't disregard it, but at the same time, it's not intentional for us. So I'd love for you to share your experience with some of the challenges that people with disabilities face, because you're really creating experiences in all walks for people with disabilities to have them with people that don't, right? And to share those experiences.
Absolutely.
So what should we be aware of as we walk through culture, right? Just on a base level to make us more inclusive as we go through things.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is just being provided an opportunity to experience life just like everyone else. They want to get a job and work. They want to experience marathons or camp or whatever the case may be. So I think it's, first and foremost, it's getting to know them as a person.
Yeah.
We always talk about putting the person first, putting the abilities of all people. They're not a disabled person. They go to school, they have jobs, they do all these great things, I think, some of the personal experiences, getting around a city like Washington, D.C. with Jason, where Marine Corps Marathon is just getting on the metro is not accessible. To be able to get, the rest of us just go down escalator, we hop on the train. For the elevators for wheelchair accessibility, you've got to go 2-3 blocks around the corner, take the elevator down, hop on a second elevator, figure out which train you're going, how to get the elevators, and then you're hopping back up, and then you're a couple corners around from the other station. So you're trying to figure out, how to maneuver
infinitely more difficult.
A city, trying to find accessible parking and accessible entrances into buildings. So some of the physical structures that are tough to get around themselves. But I think the biggest, a big kind of constraint is just as society of kind of our stereotypes of people with disabilities. And so one of the things that we work through and try and promote through these shared experiences is they can go out and do marathons. You've got some buddies that have done Ironmans together that have disabilities, and have another buddy who has a blind adventurer kayak the Grand Canyon blind. And so there's just incredible stories that are out there, and it just takes people to want to get to know them for who they are, build those relationships, and give them a chance to display their true abilities.
This is why I was inspired. Hearing these stories is because I think through the challenges, and I think through things like the church faces, and how do we go on mission together, and how do we reach people, and I never bring it to the next level of accessibility to those things, and like seeing that these challenges that are faced out there, and that people would do these same things without eyesight, or with different disabilities that happen, and they would have to go through these same things, where the challenges that I face, I'm like, wow, this is really a struggle, in order to do this and this and this, and then you've just named 10 things, and I'm like, man, I just don't think through those on a standard day-to-day basis. And you named something that was really important. You said, we always think, person first, right? Person first. It's not just a person with the disabilities. This is Jason, right? And he's running with me. He's a 23 now? Yeah. 23-year-old dude, right? So we've been talking a lot about that. So here's my question for you. Like, who was Jason when you met him 10 years ago at like 13, like early teenage years, right? What's the relationship been, and who is Jason now? Like, I would love to hear how that relationship is formed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's been just really cool just watching him grow up, be a part of that, that journey, if you will. Early on, it was all about, he just wanted to have his guy time. We talked about, whenever our races with Jason and myself and Kyle, who was in our first race, for the core of us, it was the three of us that would run a lot of these races, and then it was just all about guy time. Growing up with two sisters, a lot of girls around the house, and so he just wanted to be one of the guys. And so you had a great high school experience. You had a lot of students who supported him and loved him. Went to high school baseball games, became like kind of a manager, assistant coach for them,
great. Yeah.
and just had that love for baseball. And as he got older, he got introduced to a couple female runners that joined our team a couple times, and wasn't quite as interested as just the guy time anymore.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
I mean, he's a typical 23-year-old guy. Just a lot of fun to be around, full of life. Yeah. And just a blast to be a part of.
So this was a cool moment for me, and a humbling moment, is that as we've been talking through these experiences, and I've been excited now for 6-9 months about these experiences and joining in. I've always thought, hey, I'm going to run with a disabled person, until I meet them, and everything else. And I've had this I'm going to run with a disabled person. I've never said, hey, I'm going to go run with someone. It was always, I'm going to run with a disabled person, right? And what we've talked about a lot, which was great language, is like, no, it's one of the guys. Like, you're the same way I would say, hey, do you want to go on a run with me today? It's the same thing, right? And yet we're just conditioned to separate it. And the conditioning that you're teaching is to not separate it anymore. That we are a cloud of witnesses, that we run together, and it's just wonderful. And you can see it when they're all running, it's everyone together, right?
Yeah, it's a team effort. I mean, we talk about a lot of our friends, Brent and Kyle, who talk about here in a second, but they always talk about, the wheelchair athlete borrows the legs of the runner, but the runner borrows the spirit of the wheelchair athlete. Oh. When you get to miles 18, 20, 24 of a marathon, you're ready to be done. Yeah. And then that wheelchair athlete, Jason, for me is right there cheering me on. He's cheering all the runners around us to inspire them to one more step, one more mile, get to that finish line. So it really is a team effort. It's not an individual going out there and doing this for somebody else. It truly takes a team.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Becky, can we walk some more of these images? And can you just tell us what's happening? We got a couple images here of what's going on.
Yeah, so Marine Corps Marathon has really kind of been our biggest event. We started off with one runner, with Jason, back in 2010, and then kind of have grown it over the years with a partnership that we have with the Kyle Peace Foundation, which is out of Atlanta. And we've grown it up to, I think, the last time we did it 2 years ago, we had 22 wheelchair athletes and about 50 runners altogether. So that's, I think, probably 2017, I believe it was.
That's awesome.
But you kind of see the growth that we've had and the more and more opportunities that we provide for our friends with disabilities to experience some of these races. So we've got folks that will hammer out a marathon in 2.5 hours, and then you got
Wait, that's a team. A team will handle. Well,
yeah. So what we typically do is
there levels? Like if we participate, is there like the 4-hour team that's
on?
I'm
okay. There at about 5.5.
You're okay.
So
okay, all right, that's good.
But yeah, so we pair up usually 2 to 3, maybe 4 runners with an athlete with disability. So that way, again, building those relationships, building that community, that team, and then those runners will rotate off throughout the race to push and cheer and help with food and water stations, making sure everybody makes it across the finish line.
And what's this next one?
Yeah, so this was, I think, our last year, 2019, one of our biggest teams. Like you said, just people of all abilities coming together, just sharing their unique abilities, as we like to call them, and just out there doing what they do to love to do.
And the next one shows an example of like the race chairs, right? Which is great. And so give us an example of what you're, because there's 3 different styles here, am I seeing, of race chairs?
So we've got everything from a hand crank kind of bicycle kind of style to kind of racing chairs that are just like a road bike except for running. And then they have kind of a stroller, running stroller type chair. So this was actually our team at the New York City Marathon, and me and Jason there in the middle, and then a friend of ours, Justin, with his mom, and one of the other teams. So yeah, it was a great experience, and we've been enjoying the runs together.
Yeah, it's awesome. What has this done for your faith? Mm-hmm. From getting into this and wanting to help other people into where you're at now, what have you seen growing in your faith?
Yeah. No, this is definitely not something that was planned. I never had ever planned to ride my bike across the country in college. I'd never planned to run a marathon. It was just God put the right people at the right time in my life with giving me this opportunity to work for such an incredible organization, having coworkers like Kyle that made the ask, hey, do you want to go run a marathon? Oh, by the way, we're gonna push this kid named Jason, and then just the experiences and seeing the impact that has been made because of people like Jason, and just all the community that God has kind of put into my life, and the relationships that have been built over the years.
And I love that you said that it was never planned. Mm-hmm. It was never planned that you would suffer through a marathon, that you'd be pushing other people through that marathon, that you would be using their spirit at the end of that marathon. And I think about that with our lives too, and the things that are unplanned, and how we get into these moments that are suffering, and we get into these moments like, I don't know if I'm going to finish this last little leg of what's happening in my life right now. And then you have that support and spirit from somewhere else, and it's this joy that overtakes you and gets you through that suffering. And then you get done and you're like, hold on, the suffering paled in comparison to the joy at the finish of this race, which I think about in that like kingdom of heaven language. Like when we finish the race, like what joy could that be? And there's no suffering that could amount to the joy that's coming in the kingdom. And I feel that from you, right? Which is the crazy, incredible part about this. And so we connected deeper. And I said, Andrew, I really want to be a part of this. And I said, I train really hard, not often. And I said, my half marathon experiences, I'm 2 for 3 passing out, like right at the finish line, I eat it. I give everything I got. I said, I'm in, man. Like, oh, let's do this. And he said, well, He said, well, let's talk more. And so we talked for like a year, right? I mean, like we just kind of little shots and conversations, different things. I said, no, I really want to be in. And so if you don't know, at the beginning of the year, I was sharing with the church a story about kind of what I want to do is something that's bigger than me, right? Not for me. It's bigger than me. It's not something I can accomplish on my own. It has to be through God. And so I said, I'm training for a 100-mile run. That's something that I don't think I can do, right? Well, if you don't know this, when I said that in the church, 2 people messaged me from the church and said, I'll join you. We'll train together. And I said, awesome, we're in. Well, then we realized if you want to run a 100-mile, you have to run 100K, which is 62 miles, because they don't let people just go run 100 miles. They're like, you got to prove that you can actually run long distances over terrain. And I'm like, oh, so we got the 100-mile, then we signed up for the 62-mile, and then that's 100K, and the 100K requires a 50K. So then we had to sign up for a 50K, which is 37 miles around there. And these are all ultra marathons, which is anything longer than a marathon. And so in order to get to the 50K, you have to run a marathon. Or to get the marathon, you have to run a half marathon. It's like, wow, I just wanted to run 100 miles and be done and train all year. I didn't know. So our first meeting with these 2 gentlemen was like, hey guys, just so you know, like if you want to run this, we have 7 other races we have to do in the next 7 months. But I was telling them that there's also a really neat race coming up that happens in Atlanta with the Kyle Peace Foundation, which we've talked about, who you partner with. Yeah. So this is a Ability Experience partners with Kyle Peace. Can you talk about this relationship before we talk about what's happening in February?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Kyle Peace Foundation is based out of Atlanta, and they provide people with disabilities an opportunity to showcase their abilities through recreation. So it could be a 5K, a marathon, a triathlon, Ironman. And so they have an incredible network of volunteers and athletes in the Atlanta area. And then every year, like I said, we've created a relationship through the fraternity connection. Kyle Peace has cerebral palsy, and his brother Brent was doing a lot of triathlons, Ironmans, that kind of thing, and Kyle wanted to be included and do this alongside of his brother. So they started doing these races together, built this incredible foundation. And so for us, we've, with all the other events that we have going on, we thought, what a great opportunity to partner with these guys for these different events, for these races. So they've got dozens of race chairs that they use throughout the year that we'll partner with other organizations around the country, Denver, Colorado, Atlanta, DC, and provide opportunities for other organizations to experience these races. And so we have a great partnership with the Kyle Peace Foundation where they let us borrow chairs. We come down and run a race with them in Atlanta. They come up to Washington, D.C. and run in the Marine Corps Marathon with us. So
you as a nonprofit are supporting another nonprofit who in turn around supports you so you can support other people.
Absolutely.
Do you see what's happening here? Like, I love it. And so I said, hold on. You said you go to a race in Atlanta with them. And he goes, yeah, we go to a race. It's the Publix half marathon. And we run that. I said, well, when is the Publix half marathon? And he goes, well, it's at the end of February. I said, what weekend? And he goes, well, the last weekend. I said, I'm free. And I got to my guys who were running the 100-mile with me. I said, guys, you free the last weekend? And they said, we're free. And I said, Andrew, if you reached out to Kyle Peace, could you get the neighborhood church to have a team in the Publix half marathon so that we could run with an athlete alongside of us? Yeah. And he said, absolutely. So we're running the Publix half marathon. Let's go. But you never run alone, and I need a cloud of witnesses. So I said, hey, Andrew, we need a coach, right? And I said, and I need another runner. I was like, so you want to run with this? And what was your immediate response?
I was like, yeah, I could maybe do a little bit.
Out of all the inspirational language, hey, do you want to run with our team? I'll do a couple miles. And I was like, what just happened? And so you're going to coach for us, right? Because you've done this a lot, right? You're going to be down there with us. Really cool. We're going to go down there, but there's a couple things happening. One, we just got our team assignment. So I want to introduce you. One of our teammates is here, right? Where is Keith Walker? Is Keith Walker over there? He's holding a sleeping baby in the back. That's Keith Walker back there. Keith Walker, give it up for Keith Walker. Help it out. Clap lightly. Baby's sleeping. My voice? Right, your voice more today. You put babies to sleep. Okay, here we go. So running, Caleb Dover. Caleb Dover is going to be running with us down there. It's going to be incredible. And there's some more story there. But just 2 days ago or 3 days ago, they sent out our athlete that we're running with and another team member. and you know them both. So I reached out and I said, hey, we have another team member, which they do. If a person doesn't have a team, they just put them on a team. And it was Justin
Dugan.
Justin Dugan, that's right.
Other
And Justin, this is what he said. Justin Dugan, say it again.
J-Dude.
Well, no, that's J-Dude. That's our athlete.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but.
Justin Dugan, he's run multiple marathons, a couple Ironman with Kyle Peace Foundation. So it'll be a good
this is what he led in with. And I was like, no, I had 3 guys that are training, like to start to run a half marathon. He's like, his first comment was, he's a runner. And I was like, oh, I know how you said that. And I was like, we got to start training really hard, right? Yeah. But then they also announced our athlete, right? And our athlete is someone that you know.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, it's also Justin, right? Yeah. And you said, oh, and what was his name?
J-Dude.
J-Dude,
yeah.
Right? And how old is J-Dude?
He's our age. He's mid-30s, early 30s.
So all of a sudden I was like, we're running with the guy. Like, I was like, yes, this is going to be incredible. And it's awesome.
So he's actually right there with his mom on the left.
There you go. There's J-Dude. Give it up for J-Dude. Come on now. You can't put this stuff together outside of God. Like, you just can't do it. He showed up. He had this set up before we even came. And I said, here's who our athlete is. He's like, oh, yeah, I have a picture running with him. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, this is incredible. And so we said, you know what? There's more that we can do as a church. And so we can. You've inspired us as a church, and so we want to take it further. So over here, and she's standing over there, but I want to announce for you something special that's happening in May. On May 14th, the neighborhood church is launching a fun run 5K, 15K called Grace the Runway or something along those lines, right? Where we are going to be running at Thaden Field into Osage Park, right? With the Kyle Peace Foundation and also the Ability Experience, working with disabled athletes in Bentonville, Arkansas, May 14th. Give it up for that. Come on now. And over here, and I don't know if we can get a camera over there. Can we get camera 1 over there, right? Just to kind of see what's going on. Over there is Jessica Peel, right? And she is our race director. Come on now. Working it out. So we will be having a race here for the first time ever in Bentonville, working with disabled athletes, right, alongside the community. And an incredible formation of events. There is also a nonprofit that's starting up in Rogers to work with disabled athletes in the community, just starting right now. So we're going to partner with them to help raise awareness for them and what's going on, and help support our global mission over in Africa, right, the Kibo Group. It's an incredible reality that's all been inspired because of your faith and your perseverance, and honestly, incredible relationships. I cannot imagine a better story about creating a relationship, right, about changing, right, and being a part of this. And I am so happy that you are our coach, and I've been able to walk this with you. So give it up one more time for Andrew Matznick.
Thank you.
Now that we have all that exciting things going on, I want to take a minute and just pray with you, right, over what's happening in the life of this church and the life of what your organization and the work that you do with incredible people. And so let's take a moment in prayer. Heavenly and gracious Father, I want to thank you for the way that you weave story. I want to humble myself, and I want to humble all of us who think we have the plan, who think that we are putting things forward, who think that we are driving the narrative. And the voice that you spoke to me this morning in prayer, Lord, that I give now is that you've been weaving the story long before we knew it. And we are glimpsing it. We are just witnessing a piece of the marvelous work that you do in this world. Your kingdom here on earth. And Lord, I thank you for the work of Andrew. I thank you for his faith. I thank you for his passion. I thank you for his joy. I thank you for his friendship. But more than that, Lord, he is an inspiration, a faithful inspiration to all the people out there who are trying to see faith done in a different way. The relationships that he has created are now impacting different communities, different organizations, and extending this story, which we will call gospel, outside of this church and beyond. I thank you for Jason, right? Jason being a part of a relationship with Andrew, one of the dudes. I thank you for J-Dude, who we're going to meet. I'm very excited for, but I thank you for the Kyle Peace Foundation and the Ability Experience, for them reaching beyond themselves to teach us what it means to sacrifice, what it means to serve, what it means to run with a cloud of witnesses. It is a literal interpretation of this text today. To run with a cloud of witnesses and not lose that joy, to endure for the sake of the joy in Christ. So Lord, today we are in your joy. We love you, and we pray these things in your holy and precious name. And all God's people said, amen. Give it up one more time. Andrew Matznick, everybody.